Next item of business is a members' business debate on motion 17147 in the name of Sarah Boyack on Scottish Youth Parliament's work on transport. The debate will be concluded without any questions being put. I'd invite members wishing to participate to press the request to speak buttons. I invite Sarah Boyack to open the debate around 7 minutes. Ms Boyack.
Presiding Officer, it's a real honour to open this important members' debate on the contribution of the Scottish Youth Parliament to our evolving transport system. And I extend my heartfelt thanks to colleagues who have supported securing the time for this debate, because ensuring that Scotland's young people have access to safe, affordable, accessible and sustainable transport is vital to their well-being, social inclusion and future opportunities. And I was motivated to bring forward this motion after attending a meeting of the cross-party group on sustainable transport. At the meeting, MSYPs shared first-hand experiences, especially from rural, island and Lothian communities, highlighting the barriers that speak directly to the lived realities of young Scots. And one young person's words resonated with me deeply. The young people's free bus pass is great, but it's not much use if there isn't a bus to use it on. All of us should reflect on that comment. The young people's free bus pass is great, but it's not much use if there isn't a bus to use it on. So the SYP's Transport, Environment and Rural Affairs Committee has been working hard on transport, championing issues such as rural infrastructure deficits, accessibility for disabled young people and safety at bus stops and on vehicles. And their timely and considered interventions remind us that policy must be grounded in lived experience if it is to serve our communities. And their committee represents the voices of our future in terms of transport and how much is really needed to give young people the access they deserve. Because young people need access to transport to live their lives to the full, whether it's accessing education, whether it's accessing sports and leisure, visiting friends and family, or whether it's getting to and from work. For all of these activities, they need access to accessible, affordable, reliable public transport. And this week, we've had a Scottish Youth Parliament stall that MSPs have been able to visit, and they've been giving us copies of their manifesto, Dear Scotland's Future for Young People, by young people, reflecting voices from nearly 5,000 young people across 32 local authorities, including strong input from the Lothians. And their manifesto places sustainable transport and a just and fairer Scotland at its core, not as an aspiration, but as an immediate priority. Their manifesto says that Transport Scotland and public transport companies should ensure that public transport services are accessible and reliable for young people across Scotland, particularly for those living in rural areas. Now, we had an excellent debate earlier in the Chamber this week about Scotland's railways. We need to build on the successes over the lifetime of this Parliament, whether it's Airdrie to Bathgate, Larkhall to Mulgai, Stirling to Alloa, the Borders Railway, or the reopening of the Leavenmouth Rail Link in June 24, which has reconnected communities to Edinburgh, promising improved access for young people in Fife for commuting, study and social participation, something that can only happen if we get safe and reliable transportation throughout the country. And there are plans to progressing decarbonisation of the network. But we all know there is so much more to be done to increase capacity in our public transport services, because we've seen hundreds of bus services lost in recent years. And as reports from Audit Scotland and the Climate Change Committee have stated, Scotland's ambition to reduce car usage by 20% by 2030 is off track. But that's absolutely critical if we're going to deliver the change young people need for a safe future, given the increasingly negative impact we're seeing of the climate and nature emergencies in extreme weather, wildfires, excessive heat and flooding. So there has been some progress made, with 203 miles of walking, wheeling and cycling routes added last year, but overall funding for active travel has fallen significantly in the 2025-26 budget. And it's precisely in this context where policy ambition, climate commitments and young people's lived experience intersect that the SYP's work becomes essential. So their advocacy on accessibility, safety, affordability, inclusion and co-design is not just relevant, it's vital. So young people need the bus services they can use in their communities. And as their manifesto says, supported public transport is essential for young people to live their lives freely. So, I know to move towards a conclusion. Let us reaffirm the critical message. The Scottish Youth Parliament has not just identified failings in our transport system, but they're calling for action with practical, inclusive and future-focused solutions. And young people need to be involved in shaping our transport services. I found it inspiring to hear from the Welsh Youth Parliament at our recent CPA Region Conference in Cardiff, and to hear from young women at our CPA Regional Women's Conference in our Scottish Parliament was inspiring earlier this year. The manifesto from the SYP calls for accessible, equitable transport, safer infrastructure, more reliable rural services and extending free travel to under 26s, all underpinned by youth participation at every stage. They will also ask to be involved in local and national decisions to create a public transport system with equal access for all, reducing geographic inequalities and barriers for young people to access the system. So, challenges for all parties to translate this energy and evidence into action, to invest in reliable and local rural services, active travel and inclusive design, ensure safety and accessibility are built in, that it's core to public transport planning, and having staff to keep people safe across our bus and rail services, but to embed youth voices in co-design, policy, delivery and oversight, and to bridge the gaps that are holding young people back from the Lothians to our islands, from urban to rural area communities, and to create joined-up and sustainable transport. So I urge the Scottish Government in these last months of this parliamentary session to say what will happen following our cross-party group's recommendations on Mind the Gap earlier this year, and to hear about the SYP's manifesto and what can be done now. We need to listen to our young people's experience, to build a transport that not just for them, but with them, and a system that unlocks opportunities, builds bridges, advances decarbonisation, for enabling them to use low-carbon travel options on a daily basis, and to deliver the fairer Scotland called for by the SYP that our young people so richly deserve. Thank you.